Hi, this is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Throughout this next month, we're going to talk about a painter or an artist, a Baroque artist whose name was Caravaggio. And one of the reasons we're going to talk about him is he's recently been in the news quite a bit. Caravaggio is actually an extremely interesting painter when you get to know about him and his life and his artwork. Many called him to be the bad boy of art. He was born in 1571 in Milan, Italy. But his life was not necessarily an easy one because his father and both his grandfather, they were able to escape the plague from Milan only to die on the same day in 1577. And so this tragedy sort of meant that the mother had to raise the 5 children by herself. And when he was starting to train to become an artist, it was during that exact time that his mother also died. So he was somebody who basically really had quite a, maybe you could say a bit of a difficult growing up. But yet he's still considered one of the greatest artists who ever lived. He moved to Rome in his early 20s, where his talent quickly gained attention. His early works were characterized by this very intense realism and dramatic use of light and dark, which is actually known as a technique which is called chiaroscuro, which essentially was this dramatic use of using light and dark. His life was actually marked with a lot of violence and controversy. He was known for having a very fiery temper, and he frequently was involved in brawls and legal disputes. And some say he was kind of like in and out of prison. He was always in trouble. There was a famous incident which occurred in 1607 where he killed a man in a duel. He was accused of murder, so he had to flee. So he basically essentially became a fugitive for the rest of his life. He would, took him on the run between, Naples, Malta, Sicily. He was, always sort of like on the run, probably looking over his shoulder. He had a very untimely death, though, in 1610. And they're not exactly sure how he died because he was only 38 years old at the time. But he died under very uncertain circumstances, during this very early age. Some theories suggested that he died, with wounds that were from, getting into a fight. Others was that he died of fever. No one really is exactly sure, but given his past and, being in different fights and having duels and, basically causing a lot of problems, it, very well could have been that he just got in some kind of fight and he just died from his injuries. But yet, despite all of this, his legacy lived on. What's interesting with all of this, too, is that he had this sort of interesting relationship with the Catholic Church. And as you know, during his lifetime, the Catholic Church was extremely influential, especially in Italy, when it came to art. And so it was kind of a complex one, because on one hand, he was commissioned to do several large paintings for them. And, he did the, paintings such as the calling of St. Matthew, the conversion of St. Paul. And these, were considered to be really, great paintings. But on the other hand, his behavior clashed with the church, and as did some of his, gritty sort of idealized human figures in some of the sacred texts. He really believed in using real people as his models. And so his pictures had sort of a real realism about them. He didn't dress them up because they were thought to be saints or to be some kind of like spiritual people. Instead, he made them all very, very real. But the church, also recognizes genius. So, many of those patrons were high-ranking church officials, appreciated his ability to sort of like convey the divine through the human to this human side and this human way of art. But yet his style was so unique that he influenced many artists that came after him. Rembrandt was an artist that was really highly influenced by him and his use of sort of light and dark. Even though Caravaggio, he didn't live very long, only lived to be 38 years old. Some people say he only did 60 paintings, but others, attribute to about 100 works of art to him. There's still works of art being found today, which is very interesting, that are attributed to him. So, his legacy's lasted a long time, and he's got this great group of followers and people because of his unique art. So stay tuned for our next one. We're going to talk some more about him and his very unique art. This is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. If you'd like to be able to read our blog that we've written about him, which is Caravaggio, A Life of Art, Controversy, and Influence. And in there we have a lot more details. You can see some of his art and see some of the other, and learn a little bit more about this truly remarkable artist.